Welcome back. We are now pulling out of markets into a bit of macros and with a heavy heart because the markets are doing so well. The Nifty bang, don't miss that, 2.4% higher at this point in time. And across the board, it's a 1% gain. The mid caps at 1.4%. But the standout performer today are the financials leading the rally in the Nifty itself are the Bajaj Finserv, the Bajaj Finance and Bajaj Finserv. Though the third Bajaj also is doing very well. That one is up 4%, Bajaj Auto. But then if you take the top 10 stocks, I think 7 of them will be financials. Bajaj Finance, Bajaj Finserv, Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, ICICI Bank, IndusInd Bank. 6 of the top 10 are finance stocks. So it's a huge day as far as financials are concerned. But let's move out to the big macro issue. The Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade is working on a policy to curb low-quality, cheap imports from China. How feasible is this, since there seem to be such a range? Biswajit Dhar, Professor of Economics at JNU, who tracks trade policy very closely, and S.K. Saraf, President of Federation of Indian Export Organizations, the FIO, are joining us. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much. To you, Professor Dhar, first, there are so many things that come from China. Can policy restrict them? For instance, we know that Ganeshas are coming, a whole host of printing papers coming from there. Cheap jewelry, umbrellas, just about anything comes from there. Can there be a policy that restricts these?
I don't think it's possible in a market economy because, the consumers prefer cheap products, and wherever they get the cheap products from, they would actually buy that. So, this whole argument that you're going to be stopping low quality and cheap imports from China, this doesn't look to be very feasible in terms of implementing it. Because, there are products within which, like, for instance, take, for example, one of the items which has been listed by DPIIT, which is glass. Now, glass is of various kinds. You have toughened glass that you use in, specialized, in automobiles, and then you have ordinary glass. Now, when imports take place, they take place under this, the heading glass. Now, who's going to implement it? And how is it going to be feasible for the customs to make out whether this glass is for automobiles, is going to be part of the, is coming through the production network of these companies, and something that is going straight into the market where a retail consumer is going to buy. So I don't think this is feasible, and if the government is intending to reduce the cost of doing business, this is going to be a nightmare for all the traders and also, of course, the consumers.
Okay. Well, is it possible to target some products? I mean, you're right about glass, but it's not a small contributor actually to the import basket. For instance, a lot of tire companies in India were complaining that the Chinese tires have some quality issues, and now, of course, they have been kept away from Indian markets, the Chinese tires. So, can we single out some products where there is a proven quality issue?
No, yes, certainly we need to do that, and something that we have failed miserably, and which is that we have not used our standards adequately. The world over, countries have moved out of using traditional trade instruments like tariffs, and they have moved on to using standards. So if you look at the major trade barriers right across the world, this is where the trade barriers are, and somehow India is lagging far behind in using these standards. In fact, we know that all of us consume horribly substandard products, and lack of standards is something that one has to blame even the Indian producers of. So, because these standards have to be imposed uniformly across all the producers, domestic and imported, there is a certain amount of I would say, reluctance on the part of the government. I think this is the thing comes out with their discussion with the industry. So industry also says, let's go slow on standards. But I don't think right at this point we cannot just ignore this issue of standards. we need to use our standards. We need to define our standards very well. We don't have our own standards. Most of the standards that we use are actually borrowed standards from other countries. They don't fit the conditions and the consumer requirements adequately. We need to strengthen BIS. BIS is a lackadaisical organization, doesn't actually serve our purpose. So I think on the standards issue right across the board, we need to work, and that is the only way in which you can put some restrictions on Chinese imports.
Absolutely. Many points made there, Mr. Dhar. I also have many questions on my mind. How do you really decide what is low quality? I mean, something that may be low quality for you may be okay for me to use. For example, in phone accessories, I mean, you can only decide after using it for a certain amount of time that this is low in quality, right? That's one issue. The other thing, I want to also get Mr. S.K. Saraf into this. Won't this hit Indian companies as well? I mean, okay, we're talking about disallowing imports of Chinese goods, but there are so many Indian local companies that import these goods and sell them here. So won't this reduce business momentum there too? Mr. Saraf, I wanted your views on these two issues.
Yes, I agree with what Mr. Dhar has said. It will be very difficult to define what is cheap and what is quality. So having said that, I think banning import of anything is a retrograde step. The better, more positive step would be to produce those items cheaper and better quality locally in India. And this, I'm sure we can do it. It's not that we cannot do it. I have submitted a plan to the Prime Minister in May, and I think the working is going on. And we may expect some policy initiatives where the manufacturing costs can be brought down. At present, a large chunk of manufacturing costs, increase in manufacturing costs is due to certain government policies. If they are streamlined and if they are changed, then our costs will go down. There is no reason to believe that we cannot produce a better quality at a cheaper price than China. We have all the resources, we have everything for hand. This policy of banning and putting restrictions on the trade has not served its purpose in the past also. The traders always will have the possibility of getting the product in one way or the other.
Mr. Saraf,
yes.
Mr. Saraf, I think we will have to redial, sir. We are getting you stop-start. We'll try and improve the quality of that line by maybe redialing. Mr. Dhar, what would your advice be in terms of, what the government can do? It's not that we have a current account problem or a trade deficit issue. We are very comfortable. We are almost at a current account surplus. So import is not the big problem. This is more a nationalistic fervor. So what would your advice be? What is the low-hanging fruit to, as one populist guy put it, beat China with the wallet rather than the bullet?
No, I think, the government will have to adopt, a two-pronged strategy. For the moment, I think you need to recognize that the Chinese presence in the Indian economy is just too large. And tinkering with all these, the imports that are taking place is going to jeopardize the economy even further. I was mentioning on your channel earlier that we are importing all these electronic products, telecom equipment and pharmaceuticals, and to try and do something on that, it'll be problematic. And the other thing is that most of the other products that we import from China are not really large, so they don't really matter.
All right.
So we have these big buckets of imports from China, and you can't just touch them.
Okay.
So what I think should be done is that try and prepare the industry for the long haul, and create that ecosystem where you produce things that are required for India, and get out of this dependence.
Fair point, sir.
And that is what is needed to be done. We should refrain from going down the path of import substitution.
But Professor Dhar, unfortunately out of time, but you've made your point very, very effectively. And incidentally, two stalwarts of Indian industry, R.C. Bhargava and Rajiv Bajaj, said much the same. Rajiv Bajaj claiming that Indian two-wheelers defeated Chinese products in India in China and in third countries as well. So quality is obviously the best assurance. Thank you very much, Mr. Saraf and Mr. Dhar. We'll take this conversation after market hours because markets are roaring and a lot of trading ideas are waiting for you on Chartbusters. Thank you very much from the Bazaar team.